Unlocked is brought to you by Invincible, a program designed to unlock the potential of people and teams inside your organization. Join companies like Pfizer, Delta, the CDC, Google, and Chick-fil-A, and others in over 116 countries that are currently using this program to increase productivity and develop healthy cultures. Access hundreds of hours of content that is accessible anytime, anywhere. And finally, use real-time data to understand the health of every team inside your organization, which teams are performing and which ones aren't. Then understand the why behind that performance. Get free access to Invincible for 30 days by visiting www.giant.tv/30days. Hello, welcome to another episode of Unlocked. I am Skot, and today I am joining you from a remote location. So that's what my background's all about. Don't worry, you'll see my pictures again next week. But today I've got a special guest. He is a fellow Giant consultant with me, and his name is Jeff Dorman. Now, the difference between me and Jeff is that Jeff has been with Giant for a long time. He is one of the OGs, as we call him, and I'm super excited to have him on the show today. Jeff just came out with a new book called Breakthrough, and it is a companion piece to something we call Sherpa training inside the Giant community. We'll introduce what Sherpa training is, and actually it's being rebranded now to be altitude training. So you'll see the word altitude training in the future as you look for that. But we're going to talk a little bit about that and what this companion piece does in support of the Sherpa training idea or the altitude training idea. First of all, Jeff has been in this world for 3 decades, 2 decades as a pastor. So I would say that he wasn't doing leadership development, but he was doing people development. He was helping unlock the potential of people as a pastor for 2 decades. Now, for 10 years with the Giant world, he has been unlocking that with leaders and organizations. He teaches a lot about self-awareness, supportive relationships, dynamic faith, and healthy systems, and creating those inside of a workplace. This faith-based workplace, and how we can use that to not just it doesn't have to be separation all the time, right? They can be one and the same, being respectful of others as well and their faith-based systems. But how do we implement our belief system as Christians into the workplace? And so Jeff brings that to the table here with this new book and the thoughts that he has. We're also going to talk about emotional intelligence and a bunch of other stuff that's really, really fun. And you're going to get a little bit of insight into the Giant world. So I am excited to have Jeff on the show. Let's go. Jeff Dorman, my fellow Giant colleague. How are you today, sir?
Just fine, thank you. Good to see you, Scott.
Good to see you too. I'm excited about this. This is surprisingly the first interview I've done with a Giant colleague of mine. So congratulations, Jeff. You are the first. Don't mess it up, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks.
For everybody else. No, it's gonna be awesome. I'm excited because you just came out with a new book. I've interviewed a lot of authors on the show, but your book, I have not interviewed anyone that has done anything like this. So first of all, tell us about what caused you to want to write this book in the first place.
Maybe we need to lay a little foundation and talk a little bit about one of Giant's products, which is building invincible teams through something called Sherpa training. And what it is, it's a 51-week-long experience. A lot of it is online. There are videos to watch, there are exercises to do, there are worksheets to print off. And I took at one point a company, about 125 people in a company through this program. And I saw how it changes people's lives. I saw how it changes the workplace and how they treat one another differently, how they learn to understand each other, how they make better decisions, how they learn to bring out the best in each other. But then I also heard the stories of people coming back and saying, my wife wants to know what we're doing because she said, I'm being a lot better husband and father at home than I was 6 months ago. And I just love hearing those stories. And having been myself in my career path a pastor for over 20 years, I wanted to find out, okay, how could this incredible training program that's being used in businesses all over the world impact Christian organizations like Christian universities, maybe even churches, groups of pastors, whatever. And as I was networking with those kinds of groups, they kept saying, yeah, it sounds interesting, but we're really a Christian organization, and that doesn't present itself as a Christian product. And so what I did is I said, okay, I'll build a bridge. I wrote a book called Breakthrough, Unlock Your Potential. And it's basically 2 devotionals with scripture, devotional thought, and prayer for each one of the 51 sessions. So I wrote 102 devotionals and some study questions for each chapter. And it's something that groups of people could use in going through the Sherpa training together.
Very good. Because the Sherpa training, I agree. Sherpa training has been super impactful. It was impactful for me when I was initially going through it. As I've gone through it with my clients, it's been amazing. And I never thought about an additional companion piece like this to, just power it up a level, right? And put that Christian faith angle to it, which is really powerful. So I love the idea that you built this bridge, so you're hitting this wall with these Christian organizations because they could use it just like everybody else. But there was this concern, and you thought, what can I do to solve this problem? I will create a companion piece to this. So that's brilliant. I love that. The problem solving in action. Well done, Jeff. So that's really, really smart. And then so as you go through each module, you have this companion piece that helps add this Christian angle to it. What's been the experience so far with the people that you've used this with? And I heard that you told me that you had a pilot program that you're running people through. Tell me about that experience.
Yeah, I recruited 12 people to go through Sherpa training and told them that I wanted to write devotionals to go with it. And wanted to send out the devotionals to them each week and be able to get some feedback from, I didn't want to write this in a vacuum or, in my man cave or something. So I started the group through and I will be honest, I got through about 25 to 30 sessions. And I was just getting tired of the writing process, of cranking things out every week, and I was juggling other things in life. And so I said to the group, I'm thinking about 3 options. I'm thinking about maybe this is enough and I'll just be done. I'm thinking about maybe this should be volume 1, and later on I'll write volume 2 for the rest of the Sherpa program. I'm thinking about just abandoning the whole process, and they just said, no, you got to continue. This is going great. We love it. And it's helping us to grow in our walk with God and helping us in our discipleship, as well as helping us have practical ways to live out our faith at work and in our family and in the community.
That's awesome. So you had this experience where you're just trying to I don't know, and for those in the Five Voices community, you're the connector creative pioneer in you was kind of like, the shiny object thing, I was really excited about this idea, and now I really want to go to something else that's really exciting. And, but people were like, no, stay with it, Jeff, stay with it, Jeff. And so you came through, you finished the project, and people got a huge impact out of it, I'm assuming, right?
I'm praying that that's the case. Yes.
Is there, what were kind of some of the things you were hearing from people afterwards? I mean, you said that it's helped them in their ministry, it's helped them in, building their faith and whatnot, but in conjunction, because understanding the impact of Sherpa training is one thing, but that extra element of faith on top of that, what was the impact that you were hearing was happening?
Well, let's go back to a sort of a larger movement in the country right now, which has to do with the how do you live out your faith at work movement. And many people are really asking the question, how do you connect Sunday morning with Monday morning? Because we live in a society that is so compartmentalized that many people have lived maybe their whole life, with this idea that, okay, this is my church or my faith part of life, this is my family part of life, this is my work part of life, and never the twain shall meet, except there are three things I just said. And so what happens is when they're using the devotionals plus this incredible Sherpa training, is it's helping make connections with them. That when I fight for the highest possible good in the life of another person, I'm actually learning to love them like Jesus said to love them, or I'm learning how to serve them. I can become a servant leader at work, and not a leader who's a dominator, but someone who actually liberates others.
That's really important. And I think that there is a lot of tie-in to what you're saying, as far as, we don't have to live in this compartmentalized world. And so your efforts, and correct me if I'm wrong, of this book is to make that more of a seamless thing, right? Like to integrate the two. It doesn't have to be just this or just this. It can be this and.
Well, and it's a real integration piece for me too, because having spent 20 years of my life trying to help people live out the Christian life wherever they go and whatever they do, and then I've now spent 10 years as a business consultant, and to put those two things together was a real integration of my life as well.
So tell me about that. That's interesting. So 20 years as a pastor, wrote numerous sermons and preach the word. And then you come into the consulting business where you're teaching leaders and executive coaching and team communication and building cultures inside of organizations. I assume not all Christian organizations, but all types.
Most not. Most of them are not.
Okay. So tell me about the similarities and the differences between the two. Preaching the sermons. This wasn't something we prepped before, Jeff. I'm throwing this at you. So
I love it. Go for it.
Yeah. So just that idea of sermons to now, consultant, what's the similarities or the differences there?
I think the biggest difference is you can preach a sermon for 25 minutes and most people have forgotten it by the time they get to the parking lot. But when I walk into a company and if I'm working with their employees 24 times a year, every other week for a year, I'm seeing these same people over and over, and we're actually building into this the challenge, the accountability, the support, the encouragement. We're building a group of people that are holding each other accountable and pushing each other forward and higher. And I'm actually seeing the results far better through this ongoing training. Which is why one of the things that I encouraged, of course, as a pastor was the small groups in the congregation. So people were actually talking to each other about what's going on in their life and how the Bible and God impacts their daily learning opportunity, we could call it. And so those two things that's where a similarity is for me, working with small groups of people on an ongoing basis.
And having that impact. Because I believe that you had an impact as a pastor. I believe that you have an impact now as a consultant. And that impact on people is really that essence of something you've lived out this entire professional journey that you've been on.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about this whole idea of emotional intelligence.
Okay.
Let's pivot a little bit. We talk a lot about that in the giant world. And I think in the professional world, it's becoming more of a buzzword, right? Emotional intelligence. And there's a lot of people that will say there's a lot of people that lack emotional intelligence in an organization. And I think it's an easy way to say this person has no idea of the negative impact they have on me and everybody else around them. So talk about that a little bit, the idea of emotional intelligence, and why would we benefit from that in our workplaces and our community?
Yeah, and Giant, interestingly enough, has kind of split emotional intelligence into two of its pieces. One is learning to understand yourself better. Every single one of us has blind spots. We have things that we do, that we say, that we think, that hinder us and sometimes harm those around us, and we don't notice. That's why it's a blind spot. We don't see it. And one of the things that happens is when you know yourself better, and when it's revealed to you, okay, this is what I need to be working on next for my good and for the good of everyone around me, and it's pointed out in a positive, loving way, so to speak, or a way where people are encouraging each other. We learn to discover more about ourselves, and that's the first step toward a journey of growth. The second part is learning to understand other people. And just because that person doesn't think like I do, doesn't mean one of us is right and one of us is wrong. Perhaps for me, as a connector, perhaps I'm the one that gets excited about all kinds of things. I want to try new things. I want to move things forward. And there's a guardian sitting across the table that's asking really tough questions that make me feel like I'm being strip searched in public. And but if I can learn to say, okay, these are important questions because they're going to give us a more solid product when we get through this process together. If I can invite the best out of each of the voices at the table, instead of trying to shut everybody else down and force them to listen to me like a pioneer might, then we can make the best decisions. We can come up with the best plans, the best process, and the best product for our customers.
Right on. And I think that as we learn to move from critique to being curious, there's an interesting transition there, right? Because it's really easy for us to critique and to say, hey, what's your problem? Why are you strip searching me in public? Like, figuratively speaking, why are you, hopefully they're not doing that, but why are you ripping into me on these questions? Like, I don't know all the details right now. And why don't you just trust me? Just trust me, it'll work out. Right. Which is the worst thing you probably say to a guardian. But,
yes.
But learning to be a curious about that is, one phase of that is, hey, I'm curious. You seem really intense right now. Is there something driving that? Like, I can help you get some answers to these questions, but I also notice some intensity under that, right? Or maybe they're just asking a lot of questions, right? But it's not, hey, they're pouring cold water all over my ideas all the time.
Right.
It's really about, and not taking it so personal. What's the thing that I can be curious about in this situation, as opposed to just critique?
That's huge, and that's huge in every area of life. Not to be able to avoid being defensive, avoid reacting, and to just stop for a moment and ask that question. What is this? What is their valid point here? Perhaps, maybe it's uncomfortable for me, but is there a kernel of truth in something that they're saying? And the second thing is, where are they coming from? What in their world, what in their perspective causes them perhaps to be so fired up about whatever it is that they're saying at this moment? And how can we, again, build a bridge to understand each other rather than just cutting each other off and walking away?
Because that is the opposite of collaboration, right?
There is.
So, and we all want collaborative workforces. We want collaboration because we want to invite collaboration because it helps us get other viewpoints. But as soon as we get collaboration that makes us uncomfortable, we're like, we don't want that, right? I don't want that collaboration. I want the collaboration where you agree with what I have to say, not tell me why it's not going to work,
Right.
So there's some definite issues there. So emotional intelligence is this, big picture. You say it's self first, then others, right? That progression.
Both. Absolutely.
Let me ask you this, and this is a little bit of a discovery thing. Why can't we start with others first and then move into ourselves?
Probably because I think about it this way. We all have a set of tendencies, and I've divided them into thirds. Now I realize it's going to be different recipes for every human being. But all of us have probably a third of our tendencies that are the things that have made us successful and made us who we are and what we've been able to accomplish. There's probably a third of our tendencies that I call benign, they're there, they're not really hurting anything, they're not really helping anything. There may be another third of our tendencies that you could say they're cancerous. They're causing problems either for ourselves or for those around us, and we don't see that. And that's why if you can start with yourself and say, okay, how can I know myself to lead myself better? How can I take this third of my tendencies that are causing problems and give it some radiation treatment or chemotherapy or something, figuratively, and get rid of some of those things that are holding me back in life and ultimately holding my team back or my organization. That's where this idea of emotional intelligence can start with yourself, rather than being some kind of a jerk that thinks I'm going to go out and fix everybody else because I'm fine. I'm okay. You're a jerk. No, that's not the way to do it. We start with that sense of humble leadership and that sense of I need to learn and grow. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. Let's learn how to live together, to build each other up, and to be in a better place a year from now than we are today.
Secure, confident, and humble, right, Jeff?
I like that.
And it all stems from that idea. And that other person may be a jerk, right? So let's not,
well, we all may be at times.
Yeah, well, that is true. Well, not me, but
well, not you, Scott. No.
Not me, of course.
Everybody but you.
Everybody but me. So
I think it's an interesting thought, though, that I've been connected with Giant for nearly a decade now. And the interesting thing is, a lot of what we do is about improving emotional intelligence and improving communication, but we've never marketed it that way. And I don't know if it's because businesses. I'm just curious about that, because it's really what we're all about, and yet sometimes it's not. People don't know. I think businesses don't know that that's what they need at times. And so we can talk to them and say, we're going to raise the level of leadership. We're going to improve your managers. We're going to do all these things. And they go, okay, I can understand that. And maybe they're the voices that also need a little increase in emotional intelligence. And it happens if they get into the program.
That's right. And there's different angles in psychology in the marketing world that, people tend to buy transformation, right? They buy that transformation process and
what am I going to get out of it?
Right. And that viewpoint of what could be. And when we talk about, everything you're talking about here is unlocking the potential of what we have inside of us. So those things holding us back, that cancerous third is holding us back. That is caging us, right? That's putting us in that cage. And as soon as we become free, we are then unlocked, which is why you see on the unlocked logo for my show are birds, right? Birds flying off, being free, flowing into, finally being able to just do what they need to do. And that's really, really important as we talk about ourselves, but then being able to unlock the potential of other people is where it just gets amplified, It
sure does.
And it does take us to understand ourselves first to be able to do that for others.
When you talk about letting those birds free out of that cage and how we're caged too, it just reminds me of the old phrase, fully human and fully alive. And that's what liberation does. That's what setting people free does. That's what raising their emotional intelligence and their people skills and their communication skills. It helps them be fully human and fully alive, and it takes their success to another whole level.
Can you tell me about Christian employee resource groups? I am going to be completely honest. I don't really know anything about that, Jeff. And please educate me, educate the others out there that don't really understand what that is inside large corporations and how what you're doing can play a role in that.
So I'll just give a snippet here. Last week, I spoke to a group of 40 people at Boston Scientific here in the Twin Cities. It was on Zoom because they were scattered all over their homes where they're working, many of them. But the Christian employee resource groups are are groups that are in any kind of a business, any kind of secular or non-secular organization, but they are the kind of thing that says, okay, what are the needs of our people and how can we help meet those needs? One of the things that it's amazing how many companies are hiring corporate chaplains in today's world. That's something that would be, connected to this idea of resources for Christians in their organization. They're having Bible studies, they're having prayer meetings, they're having small groups, and these are people that none of this is illegal in the business world as long as it's voluntary. So sometimes we get this impression that in order to be legal, we have to be totally secular and not allow anything religious into our organization. But that's not the way the laws actually read. They just say you can't force anybody to do anything religious in your organization. And so Christian employee resource groups, I could just name off a whole list. I don't have it in front of me, so I can't. But everything from, Boston Scientific, Medtronic, Target, the IRS. I was going to say, for Christ's sake, but bless the Lord. How's that?
There you go.
Has a Christian employee resource group. So it's a very interesting thing that's happening in today's world, and something that I would like to see companies and Christians build on.
That is eye-opening. I had no idea that was a movement that was happening. Is that recent? Or, how long has that been going on?
I'm sure, like anything else, it started small and it's growing.
Yeah.
Whether it's been going on for 10 years or 20, I don't have the answer.
Okay. And so you would, in essence, this book, Breakthrough, could be a companion piece if these individuals were involved in Sherpa training, which individuals can do on their own as well if they wanted to. Having a facilitator, a coach like us is obviously better, right? We hold people accountable and can run people through it. But having this as a companion piece could even just empower them that much more within these groups, right? Is that kind of one of the angles that you're going for here?
Right. And the other reality is there are so many teams in the workplace where they have a budget to be able to spend on something like Sherpa training. And they want their employees to do, ongoing continuing education and leadership development and emotional intelligence development, et cetera, et cetera. And so businesses can use the Sherpa training with anybody and everybody. And then, like I said, if there are groups of Christians in that organization that want to add the devotional content and see how their faith connects to what they're learning about being successful in the workplace through servant leadership and positive intelligence and such, then you can offer two different things, both related to the Sherpa training, and it could exist side by side. One organization might just say, we're doing the Sherpa training with our people. For those Christians that are interested, there's a book available of devotions, and we'd encourage you to form groups that might meet for lunch every couple of weeks and talk about how do the devotionals impact what our company is doing as we're raising the level of emotional intelligence with the whole organization. So there's all kinds of ways it could happen.
Great stuff. Let me ask you, I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot here. You've got the book in front of you. Is there anything in there that you could share with us that we could take away with us today? A thought, some kind of teaching, some kind of principle. I know that Giant has a lot of them. And a lot of our listeners may not know exactly if there's, specific tools that you're talking about, but is there anything in your book that you could share with us right now to help us get a little taste of what's involved?
Well, let's just take that phrase. Liberating means fighting for the highest possible good in the life of those you lead or in the life of someone around you. And it really means fighting for the highest possible good in your spouse's life, in your kids' lives, fighting for the highest possible good, not only in the sense of someone you might supervise at work, But what about the person next to you that's at your same level? What about fighting for the highest possible good for your supervisor? What about fighting for the highest possible good for your vendors and the relationships that you have with those important people to your business? What about fighting for the highest possible good for your customers and giving the best possible customer service so that they're going out telling all their friends what an amazing organization this is, how they were so well taken care of, and it was just great. I won't mention any names, but I had 3 different experiences with customer service in the past month. One of them, I spent 3 hours online and on the telephone trying to talk to people, trying to, whatever, and still ended up, then they didn't solve my problem. I'll skip the second one. That was only about an hour, hour and a half. And the third one said, sure, all you need is this and this and this. And here, I'll stay online while you get it set up, and we'll make sure that you're running well. And I walked away and I said, oh, thank you. That somebody out there finally, gave me the help I was looking for. Now, I literally was trying 3 sources to get the help with one thing that I needed to get set up.
That is what, as coming from the design and brand strategy world, I look at that and I go, that is creating a positive brand impression for that company, right? For you to be able to have that experience, you had bad experiences before, right? Which is leaving a bad taste in your mouth, which is probably
different companies.
Which is going to cause you to go to the barbecue this weekend and say, oh, this one company, oh, blow you, right? And talk poorly about them. That is their brand image. Now, the last experience you had was a positive one. You'll also talk about that one. Oh, and then I finally met this one, and then that was great. And now I talk about this from a marketing standpoint, but this is where I also create the bridge and say, leaders do the same thing. Leaders have experiences with their employees, with their team members, their colleagues, where their colleagues go to the barbecue that weekend and say, oh, my boss or my workmate or my colleague that I'm working with is just driving me. They're like this and they dominate the meeting, and right. Or they're saying, oh, I love working with Jeff. Like Jeff is always fighting for me. And I feel that. And that's awesome. Right. So you've got this brand image floating around you all the time. And it can be either positive or negative. And it's not really what you say, it's what other people are saying about you when you're not in the room. So that's huge. It's really, really important to take control, to be intentional about fighting for the highest possible good of those you lead, you work with, in your family, even yourself. And so I love that you brought that up. I think that's really powerful. Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Jeff Dorman, I want to know where people can get a hold of this book. So we may have a lot of people on this call that are actually involved in Sherpa training, that are doing that at the moment. If you're not involved in Sherpa training and you're interested in that, where can people find out more about that?
Well, they can find out more about Sherpa training by either contacting you or contacting me. My branding is called Breakthrough CTC. It stands for Coaching, Training, and Consulting. So it's breakthroughctc.com. And the book is called Breakthrough Unlock Your Potential. The book is only available 2 places. One is on my website, but the other is on Amazon. And in fact, I'm doing the print on demand on Amazon so that the people in Europe and in other places of the world can actually have it printed where they are, and they don't have to pay for shipping from the United States to Australia, for example. And so that's why I chose Amazon as the provider for this book.
Very cool. I think that this is a smart move, Jeff. I mean, I didn't think about doing this. I mean, Giant provides a lot of great resources and supplemental materials. But this piece is something that they don't provide. And that faith-based angle companion piece to the Sherpa training is just really smart. So congratulations on that. And I am probably going to ask you about that in the future, because I have some prospects that may have some great value, get some great value out of that. So appreciate you, Jeff. Thanks for being on the show, man. Is there anything that if people want to get in touch with you to either speak at an event or whatnot, they just go to your website, or is there other places to connect with you?
That's the easiest place to go. breakthroughctc.com, and they can get a hold of me there. I'm based out of Minneapolis, but I Zoom all over the world. I've had clients as far east as Pennsylvania, as far west as Oregon, as far south as Texas, and up into Canada. So we can, all of us in today's world can connect with each other on a pretty easy basis.
Well said. All right, Jeff. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you, Scott. Have a great day.
Fighting for the highest possible good of those you lead. Very important principle. Because we don't only lead others, we lead ourselves, we lead our families, we lead our teams, we are organizations, we also are leaders in our communities. And how can we fight for the highest possible good of all of those individuals? It is a simple concept, but it's not easy to carry out all the time. And why is that? Because we have tendencies, and Jeff illustrated some of those tendencies, right? I love his thirds model. I haven't really heard that before. So a third of those tendencies that make us really successful, that help us grow and progress and overcome. Another third that are just kind of neutral tendencies. They don't really hurt anything. They're just there. And then the third are those cancerous tendencies, those ones that create toxicity in ourselves or in our environments, in our relationships, in our teams. And those are the things that can hold us back. And it's up to us to learn about those tendencies, because those tendencies don't go away, but learn about those tendencies, learn how to grow and progress despite those, but learn how to work through those tendencies, learn how to behave in a way that empowers us, creates opportunity for us, unlocks us. That is the idea. I am grateful for Jeff sharing his insights with us today. It was fun having another Giant colleague on the show. If y'all want to find out more about him, go to his website, breakthroughctc.com. If you want to find out more about me, you can go to skotwaldron.com. I have some stuff there about me speaking. I have some stuff there about, the show. I have some stuff about what I do as far as coaching is concerned. And if you want to link in with me, please do that too. I would love to link in with you. Like, subscribe, comment on the YouTube channel. I'm looking to build an audience there. Would love your feedback on the shows. Thank you, everybody, for being here on another episode of Unlocked, and we'll see you next time.